Las Vegas glowed like a siren's call, beckoning Ava and Ethan into its dazzling embrace. This was supposed to be a celebratory trip, their 10th wedding anniversary and a chance to escape the monotony of everyday life. Ethan, a laid-back financial analyst, had planned the vacation meticulously, envisioning quiet dinners, sightseeing, and a few indulgent hours at the hotel spa. Ava, however, had other ideas. Just one night at the tables, Ava pleaded as they arrived at their hotel, the luxurious palazzo. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she gazed at the grand casino floor below. "It's Vegas, Ethan. I want to feel the thrill, just once." Ethan smiled indulgently. "All right. But don't get carried away." That evening, they dressed for the town. Ava wore a sleek black dress that hugged her curves, her auburn hair swept into a glamorous updo. Ethan couldn't help but admire her as they descended to the casino. "You look stunning," he said, taking her hand. "Thanks, sweetheart," Ava replied with a wink. "Now let's see if Lady Luck is on our side." Ethan watched as Ava took her place at a poker table. She'd always been good with numbers, a natural strategist, and she quickly found her rhythm among the seasoned players. Ethan lingered nearby, sipping a whiskey and chatting with a few tourists. After an hour, Ethan yawned and checked his watch. "I think I'll head up to the room," he said. "You good here?" "I'm fine," Ava replied, barely looking up from her cards. "Don't wait up." As Ethan returned to their suite, Ava grew more immersed in the game. The stakes rose, as did the tension at the table. Her competitive nature flared, and she reveled in the adrenaline. "You've got quite a talent," a deep voice remarked from behind her. Ava turned to see a man in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. His piercing blue eyes and confident smile made him stand out. "Thanks," Ava replied, a flush rising to her cheeks. "It's all in the math." "Math and charm," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Damien." "Ava," she said, shaking his hand. "Pleasure to meet you." Damien lingered as Ava continued playing, offering advice and light banter. He ordered drinks for both of them, and Ava found herself laughing more than she'd expected. The thrill of the game and Damien's attention created a heady mix. By midnight Ava had cashed out her chips, flush with winnings and excitement. Damien suggested they celebrate at the hotel bar. "One drink," Ava said, glancing at the time. "Then I really should get back to my husband." "Of course," Damien said, his smile disarming. "One drink." One drink turned into 3. The conversation flowed easily, and Damien's charm was intoxicating. Ava felt a dangerous thrill as he leaned closer, his hand brushing hers. "You deserve to have fun," he said softly. "You're captivating." Ava's pulse quickened. She knew she should leave, but she couldn't seem to pull herself away. The night blurred, and when Damien suggested they move to his suite for a private toast, Ava hesitated only briefly before agreeing. The next morning, Ava woke in a strange bed. Panic gripped her as the events of the night came rushing back. She scrambled to find her dress and shoes, ignoring Damien's attempt at small talk. "This was a mistake," she said, her voice shaking. "I need to go." "Ava, wait," Damien began, but she was already out the door. When Ava returned to her suite, Ethan was sitting on the couch, his laptop open. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Where were you?" he asked calmly. Ava froze, her heart pounding. "I got carried away. I'm sorry. The game ran late." Ethan nodded slowly, closing his laptop. "I see. Did the game end in Damien's room?" Ava's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" Ethan held up his phone, displaying a photo of Ava and Damien leaving the bar together. "Someone thought I should see this," he said. Ava's breath caught. She tried to think of an explanation, but Ethan stood abruptly. "Save it," he said, his voice cold. "I'm done." As Ethan stormed out of the suite, Ava sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. The reality of what she had done hit her with crushing force. But she had no idea just how far Ethan was willing to go to make her pay. Ava sat in the hotel suite, the events of the night spinning in her head. Ethan's words echoed relentlessly. "I'm done." She wanted to call him, to beg him to come back, but the cold truth of her betrayal left her paralyzed. Hours later, a knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. She opened it to find a hotel staff member holding an envelope. "Mrs. Harris, this is from Mr. Harris," the man said before walking away. Ava's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a set of divorce papers. The letter was brief but cutting. "Ava, I trusted you. You destroyed that. I'll be filing for divorce immediately. Don't try to contact me. Ethan." Ava crumpled the letter, her chest tightening with panic. How could he act so swiftly? Did he truly mean to end their marriage without so much as a conversation? Ethan, meanwhile, had checked into another hotel across the strip. His fury simmered beneath a calm exterior as he sat in the lobby with his attorney, Sarah, who had flown in on short notice. "You're sure about this?" Sarah asked, watching Ethan carefully. "Absolutely," he replied. "I want her to pay for what she's done. Financially, emotionally. I don't care. She doesn't get to walk away from this unscathed." Sarah nodded, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "We'll need to gather evidence. You've already got the photo, but anything else that supports your case will help." "Did she use shared funds last night?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yes. I'm sure of it." Back in the suite, Ava paced the room. She knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't let Ethan ruin her financially and socially. Despite her guilt, she felt anger bubbling beneath the surface. Why hadn't he even given her a chance to explain? Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was Damien. "Ava," he said when she answered. "Are you okay? You left so suddenly this morning." Ava's grip on the phone tightened. "Damien, my husband found out about last night. He's filing for divorce." Damien's voice softened. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't," Ava replied quickly. "I made the mistake. But now he's threatening to take everything from me." There was a pause on the line before Damien said, "If you need help, let me know. I have resources, connections, anything you need." Ava thanked him, though she wasn't sure what help Damien could provide. She ended the call, her mind racing. She needed to figure out her next move, and fast. The next day, Ava met with a divorce attorney, recommended by a friend back home. The attorney, Melissa, was blunt but professional. "Ethan's moving aggressively," Melissa said after reviewing the papers. "He's asking for the majority of your shared assets, citing marital misconduct. Do you have any proof to counter his claims?" Ava shook her head, shame washing over her. "I messed up. There's no denying it. But he's being ruthless." Melissa leaned back in her chair. "We'll need to focus on mitigating the damage. If he's trying to claim a disproportionate share of the assets, we can argue for a more equitable division. But you'll have to be honest about everything." Meanwhile, Ethan was gathering his arsenal. With Sarah's guidance, he began tracking their financial transactions and compiling evidence. The photo of Ava and Damien leaving the bar was powerful, but Sarah wanted more. "If we can prove that Ava's actions directly impacted your financial standing, we can strengthen your case," Sarah explained. Ethan nodded. "She gambled last night using our joint account." "That's a start." As the days passed, the tension between Ava and Ethan escalated. Though they avoided direct contact, their lawyers exchanged terse emails, each side refusing to yield. Ava felt increasingly cornered, her anxiety mounting with every passing day. Then came an unexpected twist. Damien called Ava again, this time with a proposal. "I know someone who can help you," he said. "A mediator who specializes in high-conflict divorces. They've worked wonders for people in similar situations." Ava hesitated. Could a mediator really help when Ethan seemed hell-bent on destroying her? But with few options left, she decided to give it a try. When the mediation session was proposed to Ethan, he initially scoffed. "She's trying to manipulate the situation," he told Sarah. Maybe, Sarah said. But attending the session doesn't mean you're giving in. It could actually work in your favor, showing the court that you're willing to be reasonable. Reluctantly, Ethan agreed. The first mediation session was tense. Ava and Ethan sat across from each other, their expressions guarded. The mediator, a calm and composed woman named Rebecca, began by laying out ground rules for the discussion. We're here to find common ground, Rebecca said. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about reaching a resolution that allows both of you to move forward. Ethan remained stone-faced, while Ava shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The session began with both sides airing their grievances. Ethan's anger boiled over as he recounted Ava's betrayal, while Ava tried to explain her actions without sounding defensive. I made a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. But I don't deserve to lose everything because of one night. Ethan's glare was icy. One night doesn't erase 10 years of trust. Rebecca stepped in, her tone firm but empathetic. Ethan, I understand your anger. But this process isn't just about punishment. It's about finding a way to move forward that's fair to both of you. As the session progressed, Rebecca's calm demeanor began to have an effect. The conversation shifted from accusations to practical matters, like dividing assets and addressing financial concerns. Though tension lingered, both Ava and Ethan began to see the value in reaching an agreement without further escalation. But just as progress seemed possible, an unexpected revelation from Damien threatened to derail everything. The revelation came in the form of a voicemail left on Ava's phone by Damien. Ava, we need to talk. I've been contacted by someone representing your husband. They want me to testify in the divorce. Call me. Ava's blood ran cold. She immediately called him back, her hands trembling as she waited for him to pick up. Damien, she said the moment he answered. What's going on? Who contacted you? A lawyer named Sarah, Damien replied. She wanted me to provide a statement about our night together. She said it would strengthen Ethan's case. Ava's breath caught. And what did you say? I haven't said anything yet, Damien said. I told her I needed time to think. But Ava, if I refuse, she'll subpoena me. I'll have no choice. Ava sank onto the bed, her mind racing. Ethan was going for the jugular, and Damien's involvement would destroy any hope she had of salvaging her case. The next mediation session was tense. Rebecca, the mediator, noticed the shift immediately. Ava's demeanor was anxious, and Ethan's anger simmered just beneath the surface. We've made progress, Rebecca began, her tone encouraging. Let's focus on finding a resolution that works for both of you. Ethan folded his arms, his jaw tightening. I'm not interested in compromises. Ava betrayed me, and I'm not letting her walk away unscathed. Ethan, please, Ava said, her voice cracking. I've apologized. I've admitted my mistakes. What more do you want? I want you to face the consequences, Ethan snapped. You gambled with our money and threw away our marriage. And now, Damien's going to make sure everyone knows it. Ava's eyes widened. You've been talking to him? Ethan's smile was cold. I don't need to. Sarah's handling it. Rebecca raised a hand to calm them. Let's focus on the issues at hand. Bringing in third parties will only complicate things further. But the damage was done. Ava's heart sank as she realized the full scope of Ethan's strategy. That evening, Ava met with Damien at a quiet lounge away from the strip. He looked uneasy as he slid into the booth opposite her. I don't want to get dragged into this, Damien said, his voice low. But if I'm forced to testify, I have to tell the truth. There has to be another way, Ava pleaded. Can't you refuse? Damien shook his head. Subpoenas aren't optional, Ava. And if I'm put on the stand, it'll all come out. Ava's desperation turned to anger. You were part of this too, Damien. You pursued me. You encouraged me to drink too. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I didn't force you to do anything, Damien replied, his tone defensive. But I'm willing to help you, within reason. What do you mean? Ava asked suspiciously. Damien hesitated before leaning closer. If you can get Ethan to agree to a settlement that doesn't require my testimony, I'll back off. But you need to act fast. Sarah's already building her case. The next day, Ava approached Melissa with Damien's offer. Melissa listened intently, her expression thoughtful. It's a risky move, Melissa said. If we push for a settlement now, Ethan might see it as a sign of weakness. But if Damien testifies, your credibility will be irreparably damaged. I don't have a choice, Ava said. I can't let this go to court. Melissa sighed. All right. I'll reach out to Sarah and propose a settlement meeting. But don't get your hopes up. Ethan's determined to make you pay. The settlement meeting was tense. Ava and Ethan sat across from each other in a sterile conference room, their lawyers flanking them. My client is willing to forego Damien's testimony in exchange for an expedited settlement, Melissa began. We believe this will save both parties unnecessary stress and legal fees. Sarah arched an eyebrow. Your client wants to avoid Damien's testimony because it'll destroy her case. Why should Ethan agree to this? Melissa remained calm. Because prolonging this battle benefits no one. Ethan can walk away with a favorable settlement today, or he can spend months fighting for something he already has. Ethan's expression was unreadable as he considered the offer. Finally, he spoke. I'll agree on one condition. Ava forfeits any claim to our shared assets. Ava's stomach dropped. That's everything, she said. Ethan's gaze was cold. Then Damien testifies. Melissa turned to Ava, her expression grave. It's your call. Ava's mind raced. She had to choose between walking away with nothing or risking total humiliation in court. After a long pause, she nodded. I'll agree. The settlement was finalized quickly, leaving Ava with little more than her personal belongings. Ethan left the conference room without a word, his victory complete. As Ava stepped outside into the blinding Vegas sunlight, she felt a mix of relief and despair. The battle was over, but at what cost? Ava sat in her now half-empty apartment, staring at the legal documents that finalized her divorce from Ethan. The terms were brutal. She had forfeited almost everything they had built together. The settlement had left her financially strained, but it was better than the alternative, a public trial that would have exposed her actions for all to see. She picked up her phone, scrolling aimlessly until she landed on Damien's number. Against her better judgment, she called him. Ava. Damien answered after a few rings. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I need to understand something, she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Why did you agree to testify for Ethan? Damien's sigh crackled through the line. I didn't want to. But your husband's lawyer made it clear that refusing would come with consequences. They were prepared to subpoena me and make my life hell, too. Ava closed her eyes, guilt and anger swirling within her. And now? What happens to you? Nothing, Damien said simply. I'm done with this. I've told them I'm out. Honestly, Ava, you should do the same. Move on. Easier said than done, she muttered, ending the call. Ethan, meanwhile, was thriving. He threw himself into his work, using the energy from the divorce to fuel his ambition. Friends noticed his newfound focus, and some even applauded his decision to cut Ava out of his life so decisively. One evening, Sarah joined Ethan for dinner to discuss wrapping up the final details of the case. You handled this well, she said, raising her glass. Most people wouldn't have kept their composure like you did. Ethan gave a small smile. I just wanted it over. She made her choices. Now I'm making mine. Speaking of choices, Sarah said, leaning forward. What's next for you? Are you ready to start dating again? Ethan hesitated, thinking of the years he'd spent with Ava. Not yet. I need time to figure out what I really want. Sarah nodded. Smart. You've got a fresh start now. Use it wisely. Despite his outward confidence, Ethan couldn't completely shake the past. One night, while organizing some old files, he stumbled upon a collection of photos from their early years together. Memories of Ava's laughter, her ambition, and the bond they once shared flooded his mind. He felt a pang of sadness, wondering if things could have been different. Meanwhile, Ava struggled to rebuild her life. She picked up freelance work and moved into a modest apartment on the outskirts of the city. Nights were the hardest, the silence was deafening, and the weight of her mistakes pressed heavily on her. She thought about reaching out to Ethan more than once but stopped herself each time. She knew he wouldn't forgive her, and perhaps he shouldn't. The turning point came when Ava received an unexpected job offer. A marketing firm in Denver, impressed by her freelance work, wanted her to join their team. It was a fresh start in a new city, far from the chaos of Las Vegas and the memories it held. Ava accepted the offer, packing what little she had left and leaving behind the city where everything had unraveled. On her last night in town, she visited the casino where she had first met Damien. The glitzy lights and sounds of slot machines felt hollow now, a reminder of how quickly things could spiral out of control. Standing at the poker table, she placed one final bet. As the dealer handed her the cards, she whispered to herself, "No more mistakes." Months later, Ethan received a letter in the mail. It was from Ava. He hesitated before opening it, unsure if he wanted to revisit the pain she had caused. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "Ethan, I wanted to thank you for everything you gave me, even though I didn't deserve it. I've moved to Denver to start over, and I'm trying to become someone I can be proud of. I hope you find happiness, because you deserve it more than anyone. Ava." Ethan read the note twice before folding it neatly and placing it in his desk drawer. He didn't know if he believed her words, but for the first time, he felt a sense of closure. Life moved on for both of them. Ethan began to open himself up to new experiences, eventually meeting someone who shared his values and treated him with the respect he had longed for. Ava, meanwhile, focused on building her career and finding peace within herself. Though their paths had diverged, the lessons of their shared past remained with them, shaping the people they were becoming. And in the end, both found the strength to leave the pain behind and embrace the possibilities of the future. Ava's life in Denver was nothing like she had imagined. The fresh start came with its own challenges, but she embraced each one with determination. Her new job was demanding, but it offered her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she focused entirely on herself. No distractions, no excuses, no shortcuts. The nights were still lonely, and there were moments when guilt crept back into her thoughts. But Ava used those feelings to fuel her growth, attending therapy and joining a support group for individuals rebuilding their lives after infidelity and divorce. Each meeting reminded her that she wasn't alone, that others had stumbled and found their way back. Ethan's life also began to flourish. The months following the divorce had been transformative. He threw himself into his work, earning accolades and a promotion that placed him in a leadership role. More importantly, he reconnected with friends and hobbies that had fallen by the wayside during his marriage. One sunny afternoon, Ethan found himself hiking a trail he'd always meant to explore. At the summit, he met Rachel, an environmental scientist with a sharp wit and an easy smile. Their conversation began with small talk about the view but quickly deepened as they shared stories of their lives and ambitions. By the end of the hike, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Rachel gave him her number, and they parted ways with a mutual promise to meet again. Months turned into a year, and Ava found her footing in Denver. She built a network of friends and colleagues who appreciated her for who she was now, not who she had been. Her work at the marketing firm flourished, and her boss offered her a leadership position on a major campaign. One evening, as she walked home from the office, Ava passed a park where a jazz band was playing. She paused to listen, the music washing over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an email from an old friend who had heard about her new life in Denver. The message was brief but encouraging: "Proud of you. Keep going." Ava smiled, tucking her phone away. She had come a long way, and though there was still work to be done, she was finally on the right path. Ethan and Rachel's relationship blossomed. Their shared love of the outdoors and mutual respect created a foundation that felt solid and unshakable. On their one-year anniversary, Ethan took Rachel to the same trail where they'd met. At the summit, he handed her a small box. Rachel opened it to find a delicate bracelet adorned with a single charm shaped like a mountain peak. "Here's to many more adventures," Ethan said, his voice filled with sincerity. Rachel smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so glad I found you." Though their lives had diverged, Ethan and Ava occasionally crossed each other's minds. Ava wondered if Ethan had found happiness, and Ethan occasionally thought about whether Ava had truly changed. But neither felt the need to reach out. Their chapter together had closed, and they both understood that some things are better left in the past. One day, while organizing her apartment, Ava came across an old photo album from her marriage to Ethan. She flipped through the pages, pausing at a picture of them smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower. A pang of regret tugged at her, but it was fleeting. She closed the album and placed it back on the shelf, knowing that those memories were a part of her story but no longer defined her. Ethan, too, found closure in his own way. On the anniversary of his divorce, he took a solo trip to the mountains. Standing at the edge of a serene lake, he reflected on how far he had come. "Thank you for the lessons," he whispered, the words carried away by the wind. Both Ava and Ethan had made their mistakes, but they had also found the strength to rebuild. Their paths had taken them in different directions, yet both had discovered what it meant to start over and to embrace the future with open hearts.